Guys, I think we're out of time right now. So quickly before we wrap up, we just wanted to thank everyone for that. Any more questions? First of all, I see Maciek has his hand. Do you have a microphone, Maciek?
So I have actually more two comments than the questions. So the first comment / question is, I don't know when we're going to have this mailing list but it would be great if we could. It would be amazing, and if we could get this community going like as soon as possible, that would be awesome. That's the first one. The second, but that's so whenever it works. The second one.
So there'll be formation mailers shortly, and you'll all be included on them. What we can look at doing, if folks are into that, is, and I've seen this done before, pre-formation, is starting a weekly technical sort of work stream call where we get together once a week to sort of hash through some of these details leading up to the formation. That's something that I've seen done productively in the past. And often that ends up seeing something that continues going forward as sort of a get the whole community together in one place to talk about common technical issues kinds of thing post-launch. So that's certainly something we can do here. Is that something that folks would be interested in? Seeing a lot of heads going up.
I like the mailing list, the wikis. If we can avoid the calls, because there are already many calls, different times and stuff.
Both. No, I understand. And the thing is, you typically do both. So I'm not saying in lieu of mailing lists at all. But there'll be formation mailers shortly. Folks will be added to them. There's typically one for each track, and that kind of stuff. So.
Yes, I support Vincent on the mailer front. So the second point I wanted to make is this is all about code. But I was wondering whether there is a way for all of us not to forget about the users of the code. And what I was thinking is, if there is a point, and I don't know whether this something like that has been ever attempted in OVSDPTK or other community, to look at some sort of, whether a separate mailer or discussion group, or maybe the same, but thinking about the usage of the code in terms of network designs. And so what would be really nice, as we are doing the CPL, where we have 3-node thing, which is 2 active nodes, VPP. This is a network design of 2 nodes. For me, this is a reference design for which the VPP code would work and is continuously verified as working. And whether we can think about other reference design scenarios where this code could be used for. Not necessarily production deployment ready, not necessarily with complex configurations and specific IP or whatever rules, but something that is referenceable to demonstrate to people that this technology can be used in various ways, and also to make us think as a community to write the code, optimization code, infrastructure code, platform code, hardware support code, whatever, that actually is recognized as a valid reference design and useful. So just a comment.
Thank you, Maciek. So anyone else got any other comments or thoughts before we wrap up?
I just had one. Coverity. You guys done with that yet? Coverity. Coverity. Basically, it's a
Have we ever run Coverity on the code?
Oh, yeah, let me tell you all about the Coverity story. Yeah, we've done that repeatedly. There are 2 problems with it. The code's very function pointer intensive, and Coverity doesn't get it. It also is real stupid about what we do in memory allocation failure, which is that the memory allocator, which is down to VPP info we didn't get to look at, turns out to do a long jump if it fails. As a result, all of the Coverity bitches about you're not talking about not checking null pointers are useless. And the hit rate on garbage to actual bugs that I've found when I've spent the 3 days to go through a run as recently as a couple months ago is that you get about 1 bug per 1,200 or 1,500 noise warnings. Oh yeah, and you only get about 70% code coverage because the rest of the files cause the Coverity tools that we have to core dump. I mean, I've been there, I've done that, I've tried, but Yeah. 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 Yeah.
that have different
Yeah.
router linking.
Yeah, the top, yeah.
High level perspective, I think it's reasonable. in
Yeah,
some
yeah, no,
cases.
it's reasonable. We certainly from time to time do run the stuff through the food processor. Generally, when someone wants to make me irritable, they go make me do it again. But
Yeah, but you can also, go through Coverity and mark them as not positive
yeah,
or
if you
false
can save
positives or
if you can
something
save
like
the
that.
data and so on and so forth, it turns out I'm not dissing the tool, but it's a lot of hand labor to go through go through and sort the chaff from the wheat. The other thing is I just had a good one to do. Sorting through the Coverity warnings. Oh gosh, I've lost it. There's just some minor point of similarity about it, but you end up wanting once in a while to go through it. Now, some of the internal processes that Cisco uses on some of the big router source bases are that you can't commit anything without a successful run across the entire tree or anything you've touched at least. And that kind of process for hardened criminals, it really gets in the way, it gets totally in the way of innovation. My feeling is I don't want to ever see patches that cause GCC warnings. GCC, if it says used before set, it probably isn't kidding. And, those are always to be fixed.
One option with the Coverity I've seen used in other projects before isn't necessarily weeding through all of the errors and warnings that come out right now. It's more a case of maintaining a history and seeing if this patch or this code check-in adds new warning messages. It's the delta. So if we kept a golden file around of what's there today, and then when you add something new in,
You can. It's a 20-minute hit.
Not every build. It doesn't have to be every build.
If I may, because when we see your code, Dave, we can see that a lot of the modules, we can control the number of, you understand the number of mutations that happen in the code. You don't do malloc in the middle of the code. So it's a data path which is under control. And there's a very nice tool from a French company which is named Trustinsoft. I think they have some part which is open source, by the way. Mm-hmm. And it was used on DPDK some times ago, like a year and a half ago. They even won some contests that Sixwin organized. And we did run the DPDK through their tools, and it was able to find some flow design, very small, so using a completely different analysis. It's not using static code analysis. It analyzes code based on some mathematical proof, and it makes a mathematical proof of the code. But it's very interesting. So as a packet, you have an input vectors of a random bytes. And then you go through all the if-else switch case of the code. And every time in the code you have to enforce some bytes, then the vector of packet with random at the beginning becomes a mathematical object with different values when it executes. So it can check all the branch until the end.
What's the name of the company?
Trust in soft. Trust, like a trust in soft.
Trustinsoft.
Yes, it's a very, very interesting tool.
Yeah, we should, I definitely, if people want to make notes of tools they'd like to see us try, I remembered what I was going to say earlier, which is that it's a lot like intellectual property scanning, where there are multiple vendors that put out IPR scan tools. All of them, they basically get the same stuff, but not exactly. And it's a good point. We should look into doing it. Probably not on every commit, every patch, but on a reasonably regular basis to see if, oh my God. And probably every time you fire up a tool for the first time, you'll find something interesting. After that, maybe not so much, particularly.
I think we run Coverity probably once a release type thing.
Yeah.
Mostly looking for the delta, so we're looking for anything else.
Yeah.
You have to go through it the first time, and it's tedious, yes.
Yeah.
Coverity has a lot of false positives.
Yeah, it also is real bad on code with, the code that uses function pointers a lot, and the malloc with the unwinder is tough on it. What else have I seen with it? Yep.
So I think that's enough on code coverage.
Sorry.
Anything else you guys want to cover before we shut down for the day? No, any more thoughts, comments, desires, hopes, dreams?